Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 36. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. Dave, how you doing?
I am doing fine for a Wednesday, and although I do get it, the more times I go through the all 22 of the previous games, it never fails about time 5 or 6. I start finding myself getting angry for some reason.
You were angry after watching this game?
I get angrier because I find more of the things that I think could have happened, you know.
Okay.
And I'll tell you this too. I don't know if you watched the Pat McAfee, that AQ Shipley does a hell of a damn job breaking down running plays and stuff like that. That is a great segment that Pat McAfee has on there. So I had some extra time yesterday, and I went through all those clips that AQ Shipley, had queued up and all like that. And to see other teams and the concepts and all the things that they do running the football, that made me angry.
Okay, that's fair.
I guess I should clarify there. But also some things on tape that the Steelers are doing and not doing, and kind of marrying up some stats and their inability to hit hit explosive plays still. And that was the kind of the subject that, combined with takeaways, was kind of was the subject of my terrible take on Tuesday there. And look, obviously thrilled to death that this team won the game, but you can't keep. At least I don't think you can keep winning like that.
No, I don't know if that's sustainable, but it's getting the job done right now, or at least last Sunday, and we'll take it and go from there. I will say there's been too much anger collectively on Twitter after a win, after a big upset win over Tampa Bay. You got the Boswell stuff, which is dumb. You got the Trubisky thing we'll talk about soon. Kevin Dotson receiving death threats. People need to just be happy for 4 seconds, enjoy this win, and move on with that mentality.
I've actually found over the years, I think, that on Twitter specifically, wins produce more anger than losses for some reason there. I don't know. But anyway, a win is a win is a win. And now we'll see if they can do it again on Sunday night against the Miami Dolphins.
All right, Dave, we have a ton to talk about today. I want to start with just some, roster move and transactional type stuff before getting into Mitch Trubisky and Mike Tomlin, Kenny Pickett, injuries, etc. Pittsburgh making a couple of practice squad moves on Tuesday, releasing safety Scott Nelson and signing wide receiver Josh Malone and signing back running back Jason Huntley, who was with the team earlier in the season. So Nelson's release, probably a good sign the secondary is getting healthy. This team bringing Huntley back and then adding Josh Malone, who they worked out last week, the former speedster out of Tennessee. So that is just a quick update on the roster moves there.
Yeah, not so curious as far as the safety Scott getting released there. I mean, that's a good sign that Minkah Fitzpatrick might be back this week. Kind of curious about the need for another running back in there and really another wide receiver for that point. So I wonder, the first injury report will be out later today. I wonder if there was something that Mike Tomlin forgot to tell us.
Could be. We'll find out here. As you mentioned, the first Wednesday injury report will come out a little bit later this afternoon, but those are the roster moves there. Speaking of...
know what? I guess Steven Sims with that hamstring would explain the Josh Malone there.
Right. And as you just alluded to, Mike Tomlin going through the list of injuries coming off this big upset win over Tampa Bay. James Daniel with an ankle, Miles Jack with an ankle, Ogunjobi with a knee, Mason Cole with that foot ankle, Cam Sutton, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Witherspoon have been out. Tomlin saying Levi Wallace, Pat Freiermuth scheduled to practice fully tomorrow. Also, of course, Kenny Pickett, and that's the big news of the day. Generally speaking, this team getting healthier, guys, getting on the right side of this thing. But Levi Wallace, Pat Frymuth, they're going through concussion protocol. It sounds like they have a really good chance to play this weekend. And the big news, Kenny Pickett will practice fully today. And that was surprising to me, to be honest with you. And
it was surprising to me too. Good for him.
Mike Tomlin basically saying if he's medically cleared and exits protocol, then he will start on Sunday against Miami. So again, Pickett should practice in full, should not be limited at all, and barring anything unforeseen, should be good to go on Sunday night.
Yeah, look, for the most part here, just judging the way the context that Mike Tomlin put it, seems like they're going to have a lot of these guys back, if not all of them, this week. And we'll see how the rest of the week obviously plays out here and all like that. And with the whole Kenny Pickett thing and all like that, my biggest fear was with the whole optics of the concussions and quarterback specifically, and the way that they, obviously we don't know the degree of the concussion that Frymuth and Levi Wallace had and all, but just the recency bias, I guess, related to that had me kind of wondering what was going to happen. But I think Tomlin did a great job of, later as asked about, concerned kind of along the lines of the topic of concussions and optics and all like that. And he rightly said, look, we are surrounded by the, and I'm paraphrasing here, the best medical professionals in that field here in Pittsburgh, and we rely totally on what they tell us. So, and he's right. I mean, Pittsburgh UPMC is regarded as state, nationwide as one of the best in the field on that topic. And I think someone even put out there that even Tua with the Dolphins had something related with that process of being cleared and all came from really the Pittsburgh area there. So when you add that layer back into it and you break down what Tomlin had to say on the matter past his comments alone on Pickett, then okay, all right. Well, I mean, if they say he's good, or if the doctors say that he's good and he should be able to practice, then there you are there. So it does indeed, barring something really unforeseen, a step back in the protocol with Kenny Pickett at this point, that he's going to be your starting quarterback Sunday night.
Two thoughts on Tomlin saying that in such strong terms. The crucial difference between Pickett's situation, expected to play, likely to play a week after suffering a concussion, and what happened with Tua is Pickett entered concussion protocol. The Dolphins never did that with Tua, to my knowledge. They said back injury, not a concussion, don't worry about it, you're good to go. Pickett's going through the process to get cleared. So I think that's the pretty crucial difference between what's happening with Pickett right now and what happened with Tua. To the other point, for Tomlin to very strongly say if he's cleared, he is going to start, was very calculated by Tomlin. He's aware of any potential controversy right now with Pickett versus Trubisky coming off, Trubisky's great showing off the bench to help lead Pittsburgh to victory. So very much Tomlin not trying to open the door, not leave that thing cracked at all in any sort of debate or discussion or uncertainty about who this team's quarterback will be. And that's what we talked about on Monday during the podcast, during the live stream. It would be very unlikely for Tomlin to try to flip-flop back to Trubisky if Pickett was healthy and had the snaps and was ready to go. So you turn to Pickett, you're sticking with Pickett until there's a really good reason otherwise to no longer turn to Kenny Pickett.
Stefania Bell yesterday after Mike Tomlin talked, and she obviously is kind of the medical expert or consultant for ESPN. She put out there a reminder that progression through the protocol is non-linear. It's entirely possible to move through multiple phases in a day. Also, UPMC is one of the premier sports concussion centers in the country. And then in parentheses, she has recently served as consultants for clearing Tua.
Right. And so that's important to know, how did Pickett go from concussion to practicing full on Wednesday? As she's saying, this thing can accelerate, but you also have to practice. Part of the protocol is practicing, seeing how your body responds to exertion, make sure there are no symptoms after fatigue and after working out. So, practicing is literally part of the concussion protocol, and we'll have to see how Pickett responds on Thursday and Friday to officially be cleared to exit and start. But again, the expectation is those things will happen. He will get the full complement of reps, and he will start Sunday against Miami.
Exactly.
And to the point that we touched on too, this team overall should be healthier, and the secondary should be a lot healthier. It sounds like Minka Fitzpatrick, should play or is trending towards playing. Levi Wallace could get Cam Sutton. Akella Witherspoon may finally come back as well. Pat Freiermuth should return. Miles Jack, James Daniels, some of those in-game injuries against Tampa Bay should not hold those guys out of this weekend's game. So Pittsburgh should be in a much better place than where they were entering the Bucs game.
Exactly. Well, at least that's the hope, and they'll need those guys for this game for sure, especially the secondary.
Today's report probably will still be pretty long. That's typical for a Monday, but you should see guys more limited and moving in that right direction. So by Friday, I think things will look a whole lot better. All right, Dave. Mike Tomlin having his press conference on Tuesday, the Tomlin Tuesday. And I think we have to start with his answer and the report that came out on Monday. This is from the Post-Gazette, Jerry Dulac, reporting that looking back at the Week 4 game against the Jets, the game in which Mitch Trubisky was benched, at halftime, Kenny Pickett comes in, makes his debut. At the time, Mike Tomlin had said that the reason that they made that switch was looking for a spark, and Pickett did temporarily at least provide that spark. Now, Dulac's reporting that at halftime during that game, that Diontae Johnson, Mitch Trubisky, they get into a confrontation, pretty heated. Trubisky, as Dulac said, stood up basically for himself. And then at that point, Mike Tomlin informed Kenny Pickett would start the second half. Mitch Trubisky had been benched. And so that is what Dulac's asserting, that after the confrontation, Tomlin decides to turn to Kenny Pickett. Tomlin, of course, asked about that yesterday. And a very spicy Mike Tomlin during that press conference overall, but especially with that answer, did not confirm or deny that report, saying everything stays in-house. And so that is the situation right now. What is your take on everything that I just said?
Basically, do you remember exactly how that was? It felt like it was framed by Dulac, correct me if I'm wrong, as if the altercation or whatever happened in the locker room caused the decision to bench him.
You want me to read what Dulac said verbatim?
Yes.
Maybe that'll help. Okay. Here's what.
And maybe that'll help everybody too, to add context, because that's what we try to do. We try to make this as clear as possible.
Here is what Dulac wrote on Monday. Quote, according to sources, Diontae Johnson, began yelling at Trubisky to throw him the ball more, even though Johnson had a pass skip off his hands that resulted in an interception and failed to get his feet in bounds on what would have been a 23-yard touchdown in the first half. Trubisky stood up to Johnson, and a heated exchange occurred. That's when Pickett was told he would start the second half, end quote. And so that is the bulk, the most important part of that Dulac report. The implication is that the argument caused Trubisky to be benched. Dulac does not outright say that. I think that's intentional. I don't have any doubt there was a confrontation between Johnson and Trubisky. To me, the more important question is that really why Trubisky got benched? And that's honestly a harder sell for me to believe.
Why would you try to not clarify that, though, in the report?
Well,
if we were to do any, and we've learned over the years to try to be as descriptive as possible, if we even insinuated something like that, there'd be flames all over the place. Maybe he didn't do it intentionally, but it is easy to look at that and say, man, that must have been some confrontation to get him benched.
Right. That's the implication, at least, to go always sunny on you.
I guess why would you imply that, or why would you let something like that fly?
I mean, it draws headlines and clicks, and it's certainly.
But so would the fact that you could just frame the whole story as a confrontation in the locker room, and that's going to get people reading.
But
right?
Certainly, to an extent, but arguments happen all the time, especially when you're down 10-6 to the Jets. Your offense has been struggling all year. I mean, arguments, as Tomlin ended up saying, you would expect frustration to happen. That's almost a good thing if it shows the guys care. But to branch it to, that's why he got benched, or at least imply that's why he got benched. That, to me, is the heart of what the story is trying to be or could be.
Okay. And I agree. And I think we didn't know about this until we were talking on the live stream the other day, right? So I don't think Correct. We had this in the Monday podcast there, but, and I think we both agreed that there probably could have been something that happened, some sort of confrontation, but that, man, to get benched because some sort of altercation, unless somebody was throwing punches, I don't know. But it does sound, I think Mike Tomlin just wanted a spark. And I think even kind of some of the body language into that first half would, hey, get ready. Who knows what was said on the sideline,
Sure.
Later in the first half with Pickett near Tomlin and all like that. But I do find I would have to have more proof from somebody, quote or whatnot, that, that confrontation resulted in was the reason that he turned to Pickett. I don't believe that until I have reason to believe otherwise. I do believe that there was some sort of confrontation. It probably went something like, man, you got to throw me the ball more. And, and Trubisky said, why don't you get your feet down, in bounds, and probably just escalated from there. And this stuff probably happens more than
all the time.
What most of us even think might happen. And here's the thing, Mike Tomlin only really kind of addressed half of the question, right?
Right.
Because I believe he was asked, and that was a factor in Kenny starting. And he said, I do like the way that he
I hate the question, because the question should be, was Trubisky benched because of an argument with Diontae Johnson? When you do that, when you put all these other words into it, you give Tomlin so many outs.
Right. And he can give a long response at that and make it look like he answered the question, and he didn't answer the second part of the question.
Right. Here's what Tomlin said in response to the question, part of it at least, quote, "Our business is our business, and I understand in today's climate, oftentimes there's leaks, our business getting in the streets, but I'm not going to acknowledge it or confirm it or deny it in these settings. I'm just not. I ain't got enough hours in my day for it," end quote. And again, went on to say that if it happened, good. If it didn't happen, it probably should have, because, everyone was playing poorly and guys should have been mad about it. And so that was, the fact that Tomlin doesn't deny it
means it happened.
I think probably means it happened. But again, is that the argument, or is that the benching because of the argument? Those are two separate and very crucial points.
Right. Did you like his answer overall?
I didn't like the question because it gives Tomlin all those outs. I know if you ask Tomlin anything, it's not like he's going to come out there and say,
sure,
let's walk you through what happened in the locker room. Like, obviously Tomlin's not going to do that, but I thought the question wasn't, credit to asking it, because you're putting yourself in the buzzsaw when you do that. But I thought it could have been worded a bit cleaner and shorter to try to not give Tomlin so many outs there. My thought is, did the confrontation happen? Almost undoubtedly, I'll believe that. Did it lead to the benching? The furthest I would go is Tomlin was considering it at halftime. Then he sees the argument, knows about the argument, and decides, okay, that's the final straw. I am going to make a change here because the environment's not conducive for us getting back into this game. That's about as far as I would go in terms of believing that report fully.
Right. I don't think Trubisky getting sat down had anything to do with anything that happened in the locker room.
Yeah, because why didn't Johnson get benched? If he started it and Trubisky was just responding, why it doesn't make sense from that aspect, obviously.
Right.
Anyway, so
I even though he didn't answer the second part of the question, I like the way that he answered it.
In what sense? Just the strong nature of it.
He's not lying. He didn't lie in there, and he pretty much told you that something happened without telling you that something happened.
Right, but the most important part, he didn't. He got the sidestep.
Sure.
He just got to talk about the confrontation.
And he's great at that,
Right. We can all agree a confrontation probably happened. Just intuitively, this team had 6 points at halftime against the Jets. Yeah, people were probably pretty pissed about that.
Right.
That's good. But did it lead to the benching? To me, is the only part I care about.
Okay.
What else did Mike Tomlin have to say? That was obviously the big headlining type thing. Let's see talking about Kenny Pickett and why he's going with him, as you referenced earlier. Let me pull up the quote here. Tomlin's new favorite phrase, quote, "We're not going to blow in the wind.
Blow in the wind.
Be somewhat steady. I've been consistent in my messaging regarding the decision making at that position. I think it helps those that are playing. I think that it helps the team in terms of who to follow, and we're not going to flip the script." Now, that's what we talked about Monday, Dave. This team was not going to try to go 2019 back and forth.
Right.
Pickett was their guy.
It's the right decision at this point. Yeah, I think so.
It is. I know Trubisky played great off the bench. Kudos to him, but there's a reason why he was benched in the first place. And you made the decision to go with Pickett, and you're not going to flip flop on that so quickly.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. To me, non-story.
Now, I think he's got to be careful here. I mean, how many times, obviously, if Kenny Pickett doesn't get hurt in that game, he's going to stay in that game there. But it makes you kind of wonder now in the back. I think he's got to be careful here of making sure he doesn't go looking for a spark too much, if you know what I mean.
I don't know. What do you mean by?
I mean, in other words, if you get through halftime, let's say you score 6 points at half against the Dolphins, are you going to go looking for that spark again?
Right. I don't expect him to, but certainly if Pickett struggles, whenever he struggles again at some point this year, there's going to be a quicker reaction to bench him than what there was prior to the Bucs game.
Say that again?
I mean, I'm just saying from the media, because there are already some people saying that Trubisky should start. Now, if Pickett does play, and as you said, if Pickett does struggle, I don't think Tomlin will pull him. But
I don't either. I think he's opening up a can of worms if he does that. Right.
You'll hear the noise from the fans. And again, Tomlin's not swayed by that. But obviously, if Pickett, lays an egg in the first half against Miami, Tomlin's going to get, reamed for starting him and not starting Trubisky.
Sure.
But again, that's not going to influence Tomlin's decision, and nor does he care about that stuff at all. What else did Mike Tomlin have to say from his Tuesday presser, Dave?
Let's see. In the open there, obviously recapping and things that we talked about, man, the weighty downs in that game and especially inside the red zone we talked about, man, you held them to 1 of 4. There were some big time plays made throughout this game on weighty downs, and that was the sole difference of this game because, look, you want to boil this thing down to the TOX stat, TOX, and I described that and all in my Tuesday terrible take. The Steelers actually lost that 3-2 overall. So, and then the TOX stat tells you if one team the differential is +2 or more, they're going to win that game 80% of the time. So. You can really boil this thing down to maybe a couple of plays late there. What if Mitch Trubisky doesn't recover that low snap?
Right. That's a great play that to Ben's credit, talked about that and how important that play was.
I mean, if he doesn't get that ball, game over probably. Additionally, what happens if they don't convert a couple of them late 3rd and long situations there and give Brady a little bit more time? In there, but I think the key takeaway, and Tomlin was right to highlight it, was if the weighty down situations in here, and then the situational football element of keeping them out of the end zone and only allowing 3s as opposed to numerous 7s in that game. And then even a situational down on a 2-point conversion that you can circle that one as well, too, as being a key play in the game. Let's see, what else did he talk about here?
I think the Brian Flores comments, obviously, one of the big storylines this weekend is going to be Brian Flores facing his former team. He was the head coach of last year, the Miami Dolphins. And Tomlin, interesting perspective, saying that there's a value in having Flores, facing his former team, but said it was, quote, overblown the impact. And I think that's pretty true, especially considering it's a whole new coaching staff down there. Now, some of the personnel, some of the people are the same, but when you have a whole new coaching staff, whole new style, scheme, different regime down there, Flores' knowledge is only going to get you so far.
Sure. And I mean, I thought as well of a job as I think Tomlin tried to do to tamp that down, it's still going to be written and talked about for the rest of this week, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, within 5 minutes of the game, they're going to have a shot of Brian Flores up in the press box with the graphic and, saying, here's Brian Flores, of course, head coach of the Dolphins. They'll do that whole thing. It'll still be a story, but I thought Tomlin's perspective was interesting.
Sure.
Let's see, what else did Mike Tomlin have to say? Says, we'll see what this week holds on Calvin Austin. I guess he does have another week he could go, right? He does not have to be activated by Saturday. Is that correct? It's next Wednesday, I guess it would be. Right.
The deadline's not this Saturday, but if he wants to play on Sunday, that's the deadline at 4:00. But nothing, at least from the context that we have out of people's mouths so far, and Tomlin specifically, I'm kind of wondering if we're going to see Calvin Austin this week.
Tomlin did say he felt like there was some improvement, that Austin was knocking off the rust, but yeah, I really don't know. He's got a chance. Again, it comes down to how he looks in practice, how he picks things up, things that we obviously don't know, can't see, but we'll find out by Saturday.
And look, he would be forced to come right out right now. And anyway, there's no benefit in Tomlin on a Tuesday saying, you know what, on Saturday, we're going to activate Calvin Austin to the 53 and we're going to play him.
Right. Plus, he honestly probably does not even know right now because he's got to see him practice first. But even if he did, as you said, he wouldn't tell anybody.
Right. And on top of it, why not essentially carry a 54-man roster as long as you can, right? Right. Because you don't necessarily have to make the move until Saturday by 4 o'clock if you want him to play on Sunday. Now, obviously, once you do make that move, you need a corresponding move. So somebody's got to come off the 53 at that point. So, in short, we don't know what's going to happen there, and we'll find out by 4 o'clock on Saturday if indeed he's going to be on the 53-man roster for the weekend.
And you do wonder what
I wish you would be. I mean, even if you have to get him out there for only 6 plays and the ball goes to him on 2 of them, I'm fine by that, you know.
And you do wonder what that corresponding move could be. Gunner would be the most logical name that would get the heave-ho. But Sims' injury may cloud things a little bit, and the health of the other guys on the rest of the roster may impact things as well.
As I always like to say, these things have a funny way of working themselves out sometimes. Maybe that hamstring's a little bit tougher on Sims right now, you know, and maybe that I'm just obviously if he has to go to IR, then that's a 4-week span right there. But we'll see, I guess. I mean, I honestly, my gut wants me to think that he's not going to be on the 53 this weekend, but it obviously could happen.
Right. Again, we'll find out by Saturday at 4 p.m. Mike Tomlin, quick couple other notes praising Robert Spillane, his versatility, his football IQ. What do you think he meant by when he said Spillane was playing the nickel? I didn't get that sense, but everyone's saying it, so I know I have to be wrong about that. Is that in their 3-5 package? Is that... I was trying to figure out what they meant by Spillane in the nickel.
Yeah, I went and looked at you. I can't add it up looking at the charting and all.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
And the tape doesn't really, I don't know what he's meaning there.
I know Kim Hayward said it too, so I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just trying to get my head around that. So I'd have to go back and look. But Tomlin praising Terrell Edmonds and the communication in the secondary, and also not responding to the Najee Harris comment about the steel plate in his toe that he got, taken out of his shoe there for the Buccaneers game. So Tomlin really refusing to acknowledge that was even a thing.
Okay.
All right. I think that settles Tomlin pretty well. Let's see. Kim Hayward had his podcast. What did Kim Hayward, it's good to have, I'm sure he was happy to talk about, have a podcast after a win, after so many losses and hanging your head low. But Hayward agreeing with Tomlin's sentiment on his response to the Trubisky-Johnson confrontation. I'm going to write this later today, but Hayward had a really good answer on how he watches film, and he's just such a smart player, Dave. I mean, I can't sing the guy's praises enough. I mean, they've been a quiet stint the last month from a pass rush perspective, but his football IQ, maybe this is a little hyperbole, as you like to say, but I honestly believe Kim Hayward is one of the 10 smartest players in football. I think his IQ is just off the charts.
I didn't know you changed your Twitter handle to going around on Twitter.
I did. You can find me there now.
Add context to that.
Yeah, that was in the podcast. And I mean, genuinely the co-host that Hayward has referenced the play that I talked about and just said it was going around on Twitter. He may not know who I am, and that's fine. I don't care about that. But it was cool.
How could he not know who you are?
He may have just forgotten. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, the play that I'm referring to is Hayward essentially calling out what the play is going to be before it's run, and then blowing up a run play early in that game against Tampa Bay, and that just shows that the film study and football IQ that he has is second to none.
Right, and I thought it was interesting him being asked specifically about how much time he dedicates to the. Right. To tape study.
I wish he would have given an answer on what he saw in that play just to break it down. This is supposed to be we're not buttoned up and we're not going to be coach speak. We're going to talk about, you're not playing Tampa ever again. You're going to be retired by the time you face the Buccaneers again. So let it fly, Cam. But I understand him protecting his secrets. Although I have exposed the secrets, so they're not really secrets anymore.
Have you ever played defensive lineman in the NFL?
have not. Unfortunately, okay. I'm 130 pounds on the dot today. I just weighed myself 130 pounds. So that does not make for a good defensive lineman or anything on the football field. Maybe a good football, but that's about it. All right, Dave, let's get to the all 22 of this game. We've both gone through this thing a good bit. You take your pick, dealer's choice here, offense, defense, or special teams. Where do you want to start in terms of what caught your eye the most watching the all 22?
I'll start with going back through the defense first and foremost here. I thought they did a good job of. I mean, look, they didn't blitz in this game, did they?
They did bring Millette a couple times, but they did not have a single 5-man rush in this game, which has not happened over the last 95 games. Last time they didn't send a 5-man pressure, and I went deep down the rabbit hole in this one, pulling up charts some years ago that I didn't even know that I had. Last time they didn't do that, send the 5-man rush once, was in 2016 against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots.
Went back and looked at, tried to break down some of the coverage. Most of the coverages that they used looked like cover 3 11 times in this game. And these are all on dropbacks. 11 times cover 3. Cover 2 combined of cover 2 and cover 2 man 11 times. So you basically split there 11 cover 2s, 11 cover 3s. Cover 1 5 times, and cover 4 quarters 5 times. So they did a good job of kind of rotating through coverages in there. And I mean, there was opportunities where they were inviting the underneath stuff, and they just really a concerted effort, I think, to not get beat deep. I think they did a good job of doing some stuff with Mike Evans and doubling him a few times to make look. I mean, if there's anything that Buccaneers fans are probably mad about is why wasn't Mike Evans, utilized more in this game?
Right. He had half his yards on one early catch basically, and was quiet the rest of the game. I thought I'm going to try to do a video on this later, because sometimes even I'm guilty of this myself, get so focused on the hyper-specific elements of football, the real nitty-gritty X's and O's, that you just forget about some of the basic stuff, blocking and tackling. And I thought they were a great tackling team. Josh Carney, his missed tackle report, I believe he has his team down for only maybe 5 missed tackles in that whole game. I think 3 of them came from Trey Norwood or something like that. But overall, this team tackled exceptionally well, especially on those cover 3 plays when the receivers would side adjust and break down. Josh Jackson, James Pierre, tackling the catch. That's very old school Dick LeBeau type stuff. It was required for this game, and those guys really stepped up.
And I thought, I don't know if we talked about this the other day, but you wisely pointed out how the late shifts, how many in total were there? 5, 6 late?
I focused on the 3 that resulted in false starts, and that's what Haywood was referring to when he was referring to stemming the front after the game. He mentioned that, but there was more. There was one that you pointed out that was not a false start, but it was a good run stuff on that play. There were probably 2 or 3 more in that game. But yeah, the video that I did, I love this so much, I had to talk about it right away, was they stemmed the front with a really late line movement that created 3 false starts. All 3 attempt-based false starts were based off of that. And that was just little stuff like that you have to do to try to gain that any edge possible, steal 15 yards total. Thought that was again, when I talk about the game plan, those are the things I refer to. Really well done to try to gain every edge possible.
See, they missed the opportunity on Tuesday to ask Tomlin a question. Was that part of the game plan?
100% was, but yeah. I love to see the answer. Yeah. Right.
But to get the confirmation, right? I mean, you want to hear it because that backs up your analysis. Now, look, they still have a Thursday session with Terrell Austin. I would try to slide in something on that if I were there asking the questions on it. But hey, that stuck out, and other things that we talked about in this game as far as individual performances, man. Larry Ogunjobi, just a really strong game. Cam Hayward, just some really, really good reps in there, that long arm. But that Luke Godecki or whatnot, that guy had a time. He was on skates quite a bit in that game. Edmonds, impactful game. I think we talked about that the other day. Millette, impactful game. And I had brought this up initially, and you said, well, you need to go back and watch it. I consider this a top 5, if probably a top 3 game of Devin Bush's career, just on a totality basis. I thought he was a lot more aggressive near the line of scrimmage and taking on blocks. Did you, after going back through it, did you kind of, now he wasn't, in my opinion, mistake free in this. I think there were some things I would got a couple of questions about where he was going on a couple of plays and all like that. But top to bottom, what did you think about Devin Bush's play?
Yeah, I think that you're right. It was a really strong game. I still struggled to really be able to accurately and reliably rank them overall, but I thought he was probably his best game of the year, at the very least. I can tell you, just based on, comparing this year to this year, his best game. It wasn't perfect, but making plays, reading the run better, attacking downhill, good tackling, good open field tackling. I mean, yeah, there are a couple of plays where I know you point out the one where he kind of runs the wrong way on this pony look. I don't know what the scheme was there, but overall, Bush played really well.
I agree. Trying to think what else. James Pierre, and I think Tyler Weiss is a film room coming up on him today, right? Good game by James Pierre.
Yeah, that's up now. By the time people listen to this, it already has been posted. And just to go back to the stemming the front point, that's partly done to maybe influence some of the false starts, but it also creates a different picture for the offensive line on times where they don't false start and the ball is actually snapped and a play is run. So trying to change that look to create that different picture last second for the offensive line to try to adjust to. That was another reason why they stemmed the front as much as they did. I think it screwed them once, because one time I believe they were misaligned. They didn't shift late, and it was that third one play where there's just that wide hole on the right side. But overall, it was effective. Yeah, I just thought team defense, generally speaking, Alex Highsmith. I feel like, what more does Alex Highsmith need to do to get some love around here, Dave?
Apparently a lot.
I mean, he's got 6.5 sacks, more than he had all last year. He's got more than the rest of the team combined. He leads the NFL. He's making impact plays. I get he's not a TJ Watt, Myles Garrett. He's not this top 5.
He's not a game wrecker yet. No.
Right. The number of pressures, are a bit light overall, though it has improved. But I give him a lot of credit. I thought he played, well in this game, and you get a strip sack fumble in that one. That's a big time type play.
What about an early play too? People probably don't realize he's dropping. What's his drop rate this year?
It's still pretty low. It's around 10%. It's in line,
but it's more noticeable, or at least I think it has been a little bit more. What about the early play when he drops and the passes looks like it's completed up underneath there, and his hit jars the ball loose?
Oh yeah, the first drive to Godwin.
Right.
Yeah, that was a good job, good finish. Yeah, they're dropping because they're staying in base a little bit more, some variation up, and so you're getting guys to drop a little bit more often. Again, no 5-man rushes in this game. So the Browns game, he dropped a ton, but yeah, I think because they played a bit heavier with their personnel, more 3 defensive lineman sets, you've seen the outside linebackers probably drop a bit more. But yeah, guys making plays everywhere, coverage, secondary, tackling, linebackers playing coverage. Malik Reed with a pass breakup in this game. I mean, everybody was really doing everything, and that was required to beat Tom Brady. So
basically what you're saying is Alex Highsmith should be compared to James Harrison and TJ Watt and Lamar Woodley. He belongs in the same class, right?
Right, exactly. No, I just putting the stat out there about how productive he's been. Obviously, he's not any of those guys, but really happy with the job he's done. And this is, to me, the definition of a breakout season. I think he's been fantastic.
What did we say? We said before the season, we expected him to take that next step in his progression and hit the double digit sack number and provide more pressure. He's doing all that.
Yeah, and hopefully, or could at least get paid next summer. He's certainly in line for a paycheck, and that number's going up every single week.
For Christ's sakes, he leads the NFL in sacks.
Right. He has more than the rest of the entire Steelers defense. And I understand TJ Watt being out. And even though 3 of those sacks came in week 1, he's got 3.5 over the last 5 weeks. That's, on pace for that alone on pace for a 12 or so sack season. That's a really good number. So again, is he perfect? No. I mean, run defense is not maybe elite, but it's good.
He got hooked one time inside early on a Fournette run. So no, he's not perfect.
Well, I think he was wrong arming on that one. I want to say I have to go back and check the play, but they were doing a lot of wrong arming and then scraping over the top on that one. So even stuff that sometimes looks wrong, I think you have to. I don't know. Bottom line is, what more does this guy have to do to get some love around here? To me, I think he's done a really nice job.
Okay.
Let's see what else. Anything else from the defense? I think we covered it pretty well, but just again a great team effort.
It was.
All right, flipping over to the Steelers offense. What were your thoughts on the run game besides it being bad, which it very much was? Is there any particular theme that you saw in terms of why this run game continues to struggle?
Man, just there's nothing really looking to be schemed up specifically to take advantage of stuff, and there's no changes being made in it to me as the game goes along. It's just simple zone, inside zone stuff, and trying to gap, run some stuff, and then mix in as many end arounds as you can. And once again, this goes back to what I said at the top of the show. Man, you go and you watch that segment that AQ Shipley had, and you see how some of these teams are hyper focusing on stuff on a week to week basis and some changes there. And with the Steelers, you just see the same stuff week in and week out. And were there a couple of nice runs in this game that cracked open? Yes. But they were few and far between, quite honestly. And I mean, the fact that you're trying to manufacture your running game as much as you are with the end arounds, I think speaks volume. They've got to do a better job of run game coordinating with the talent, that instead of just saying, well, that's all that we have, just run what you have and see if we can pop one here. They've got to start, and I doubt they will, but they've got to start run game scheming more on a game to game, not only a game to game basis, but a in-game adjustment basis as well too, because we look at it and say, well, it's gotten a little bit better, but it's not the Ritz cracker that we're making it out to be.
Right. And it was not good against Tampa Bay. It was better against the Jets and teams like that, but it was not better against Tampa Bay, which is a tough front to run on. I mean, I understand that, but linebackers ran free. Devin White was running free. Levante David was running free. Never going to have a run game when those guys are unblocked and not getting climbed to. I thought just a lot of small things.
The wide receivers were not blocking well on the edge in this one either.
Right. Well, I think about what sums up the run game to me is the two jet runs that Diontae Johnson had. The first one, Chase Claypool, Najee Harris, they screw up their assignments. They get wires crossed. They basically block the same guy, and that blows up the first run. The second time, they get their assignments corrected, but Claypool misses the crack block, and that guy makes the tackle on that one. So the first time you screw it up schematically, you get it right the second time, and you don't execute it. And that kind of sums up the run game. If it's not one problem with scheme, it's another problem with execution, and this team just can't find both consistently.
Right.
So the run game but again, tough front to run on Vita Vea. You're trying to deal with him and deal with those inside linebackers.
But he wasn't all, I mean, obviously
no,
he was active, I guess, from a standpoint of maybe controlling, some plays up front. But as far as he didn't jump off the tape in this game.
No, he didn't. But again, it goes back to that triangle in the middle of Vea to David to White. If you got to deal with a first level guy, how do you get to the linebackers? And White and David, to me, were unblocked for large chunks of this game.
Okay.
What else do you want to go here? And you want to talk quarterback with Pickett, Trubisky, receivers? What do you want to do, Dave?
Yeah, and we talked. Yeah, I said that I wasn't thinking it even at halftime with Pickett that I thought he played okay. At no point did I think, oh man, they got to get him at it. But he did. He missed some throws. To me, he missed a couple of throws that he probably should have made, and one specifically got me a lot of attention on Twitter.
It did. For people who are on Twitter, they know what we're referencing. A lot of people that listen, I'm sure, aren't on Twitter. So just to set the scene, there was, and both Dave and I want to focus on just the play itself here rather than everything outside of that. But double move, a sluggo route that they had run. Is that first half, second? I guess, well, is that first half? Probably first half. When did that play happen?
First half, I think, right?
First half. Okay, yeah. Sluggo
I've got it conveniently pulled up here. Hold on a minute. I'll get you a timestamp.
Okay, I'm pretty sure first half.
2:30 left in the second quarter.
Okay, late first half. running a sluggo, so a slant and go to chase Claypool. Safety bites on it. Claypool gets past both defenders. Kenny Pickett seeing it, probably first part of the progression, does not throw it. Pass ends up as a throwaway. Long story short, for those who are not on Twitter or those who are, you post that clip, had a conversation with Charlie Batch.
Two views. I gave simultaneous views of the end zone shot and the all 22 shot synced up.
Right. Charlie Batch saw that, disagreed, said it shouldn't have been thrown, kind of went from there. Everything's all good now. We like Charlie. We respect Charlie. We don't want the focus to be today about Charlie Batch. We want to talk about the play itself. My personal opinion is that you're right there, Dave, that the Pickett should have made that throw. And I can even take it a step further and back it up. And if you go back, and it's hard to explain this stuff audio-wise, talking about video, but if you watch that play, watch the bottom of the screen on the sideline, Pat Fryman with Connor Hayward basically putting their hands in the air, saying Claypool's open, they're going to hit this for a big play, probably a touchdown, and just watching their reaction to it. But to me, I think it's a play that Pickett should have made, and so I would agree with you on that one.
To make sure we provide proper context of what Charlie thinks why Kenny should not have put that out there. He says that Kenny Pickett is looking right at the safety, meaning the boundary side safety away from Claypool's side there. And he's, I guess, 7 yards away from the hash on his side there. The contention, I'll read the full tweet from Charlie Batch. Stop that! Exclamation point. KP is looking right at the safety. As he sees the safety moving to the middle of the field, he comes off of the read. If Diontae Johnson, who's on the opposite side, on the boundary side of the play, he says if DJ at the bottom had a route to control the backside safety, then the play would have worked, but he didn't. And he contends Kenny Pickett is 100% correct to not throw that pass. And I think where it got kind of tangled up there is I responded back to Charlie saying, I would have drilled it anyway there. And I think maybe Charlie, I think, took that as maybe a little bit of disrespect there, and things got. We're all patched up, Charlie and I. So I don't want people to think there's any contention. We've had Charlie on this show. I think the world of Charlie. You think the world of Charlie, yes. and all like that. But even after Charlie making his point here, Charlie's point is that he thinks that backside safety could still read this and get up and help up over the top of Claypool here. And my opinion of it is I don't think that safety can get there up over the top to help.
Right. And even if he can, Claypool on a safety, it's a winning matchup. It's supposed to be a good matchup for Pittsburgh, the way that it was on Pickett's literal first career pass. You got Claypool on a 5'8" safety, LaMarcus Joyner. Go try to make that play. Safety to the sluggo side, bites clearly on that. They've been working on that play. They'd really tried to set that play up. They've been running slants all day long, just trying to wait. Actually, a really good constraint play and play call by Matt Canada. Have to give him credit there. But even, we agree to disagree, and that's fine. That's fair. It's good to have these debates and conversations and get that perspective. But even if Pickett shouldn't have thrown that pass, as soon as he comes off that read, he's got a clean pocket. He bails on a clean pocket, invites pressure, forces a throwaway. So at the very least, Pickett did not have good pocket presence on that play, immediately bailing the pocket when that first read to him apparently was not there, and then just making a mess out of it for an incomplete pass.
And part of my contention as well, too, is this team is struggling to get explosive plays. And I put that out there on Twitter as part of the conversation with Charlie as well, too, that, man, no risk it, no biscuit, brother. As Bruce Arians would say there, and maybe you get a pass interference on that. Maybe it ends up being a contested catch opportunity, like Charlie, insinuates could be. Just the way the whole thing, the way my view of it was that, and I said also probably should have ripped it. I didn't, I try to be careful with the words that I choose. I've learned over the years, but even after the conversation with Charlie is I think he probably should have ripped it there.
Right. Or at the least, I mean, if the concern is that backside safety, try to look him off. I mean, I think it's okay to look at the front side safety, the field side safety, because you're trying to influence him on that slant. And if you're kind of looking off that safety may not, bite as hard and may, get more depth and not be so flat footed. But to your point, got to find some explosive plays. I thought that was a good chance to do it. Claypool was running past both DBs, let your guy make a play. And if the worst thing is that safety comes over and challenges the play, then you trust Claypool to finish.
Right. You trust your quarterback who has good accuracy to put it in a good place, and it probably would the pass probably have needed some touch on it. In other words, and maybe give that backside safety a little bit, more time to get there possibly. But I still contend after all this and taking Charlie's opinion on this, that I thought that he should have maybe let this fly.
I'm with you. And I would also argue that Connor Hayward and Pat Frymuth are with you based on their sideline reactions on that play.
And no, that doesn't mean that I hate Kenny Pickett. It's just, it's our job to go through this stuff. And as he grows, try to look for areas maybe that he needs to grow in. And look, make no mistake about it. This offense needs to be able to start pushing the football down the field. As we talked earlier in the show, and I ended my terrible take yesterday on this, with the amount of explosive plays that they've registered this year, which is near the bottom of the league, and with the amount of explosive plays they've actually given up, they are tied, I think, with the Seahawks with the most explosive plays allowed on defense. Probably a lot of people didn't know that right now. So when you're not producing explosive plays on offense, you're giving up too many on defense. Your takeaway, they're +1 in the takeaway column for the season right now. And I'm not trying to detract from the win on Sunday. They did everything that you needed to do on Sunday to get that win. They didn't turn the football over. They made key plays in weighty downs, as Mike Tomlin said. But personally, I don't think you can continue to win this way, and especially if you're not producing the explosive plays on offense.
Right. With no run game like that, not going to happen every single week. But it was enough to get the win on Sunday, and you get healthier and see where it goes from there. I thought overall Pickett, it was okay. There were some things where I felt like he was getting better, correcting some mistakes from past games, being a bit more patient. But again, the pocket presence probably needs some work. I just didn't think he read the field as cleanly and clearly as he has in the past. It was a play on third down. I think maybe the play right after the sluggo we just talked about, the Bucs were in two-man, which they showed on tape a lot, very much in the scouting report, very much their personality. And Pickett's trying to throw the comeback to Pickens on the against two-man with the cornerback trailing. Can't make that throw. You got no shot to make that throw. So I just felt like he wasn't seeing things as well as he had been.
Okay, fair enough. And once again, I thought it was okay. I thought it was an okay performance. And he's going to have these okay kind of performances probably for a little while here, Yeah, I mean, before his either his debut, I think it was before his first start, I said, let's not ride the roller coaster with Pickett. There's going to be good days, bad days, good games, bad games. I'm analyzing, not concluding. But it still doesn't mean that we can't hyper focus on certain plays.
Right. That's why I said analyze, not conclude.
Right. And that's one thing that I think people struggle with. People want to know right now, is this going to be the guy, know? And I can't answer that question right now.
Same. And that's why I said I don't want to get on this roller coaster, because if we live in that reactionary moment, I think that's what's happening with Trubisky right now. Trubisky not playing well for the first 4 weeks. He comes in, has a good half, credit to him, but now all of a sudden it's got to go back to Trubisky. He's the guy. Whenever he inevitably would struggle again, if he would become the starter, you go, got to go back to Pickett. Trubisky's not the guy. And that's not sustainable model of success in the NFL.
Especially, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why this isn't sustainable on offense right now.
True.
And in so many words, Charlie says, if you want to it's fair to criticize the offensive coordinator right now because of some things that aren't happening.
Yeah, I mean, on that sluggo play, Johnson got pressed pretty good. So maybe if he gets a cleaner release, that safety would hold a bit better. So I don't know if schematically something else should have been run or if it just wasn't a good enough release by Diontae. But again, I still think Pickett should have made that throw.
Look, they're adjusting. People hate this stat that I keep throwing out here, but the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat on offense right now is 4.6. There's only 2 teams with a lower adjusted, and that takes into account both quarterbacks. All right.
Let me guess the 2 teams. I'll say the Bears and Giants or Texans.
No, you got one of them.
The Bears,
but the Bears is
that's
right.
A layup. That's a bit for free space on the bingo card.
Yeah, the Panthers.
Oh, I should have thought Carolina's a mess because PJ Walker. I think PJ Walker had 1 completion beyond the line of scrimmage this past weekend.
Right.
That should come to mind.
And I hate to break it to everybody, but if that number does not jump up, go from 4.6 to like, I'll be nice here, to at least like 5.8. In other words, and that's super low end of the scale. It needs to jump up by 1.2 yards in this next game, because usually week 7 is that line, game number 7, where you can start drawing some conclusions of how the season is going to go when it comes to this stat. So if that doesn't number, and it would take a hell of a damn performance to get it to jump that. If it doesn't jump that amount, I hate to break it to everybody, the Steelers won't be winning the Super Bowl this year.
Hope you were sitting down for that news.
Yeah.
What is the defensive ranking? Where do they sit at? Offense is not good.
Yeah, it's
30th.
Unfortunately jumped up a little. Josh Allen, you can thank Josh Allen.
But Tampa should have brought that down, right? It kind of evened it out a little bit.
Yeah, it got a little bit more respectable here. Hold on here, and I'll pull that up.
I'm going to guess they're like 13th or 15th in defensive rating.
You're close. You're very good. 6.3 is the actual number, though. And I mean, just a few weeks ago it was 4. I forget what it was, but it's 6.3 now. And that number after this week needs to be on the high side, 6.2. So they're close. All right. And they obviously, going to get some guys back healthy and all like that.
What does that rank? How close was I to that 13,
it's
15?
Tied. They're tied with the Giants. I think technically, if you technically boil down the decimal points, they would be 14th overall.
Okay. So yeah, about just above average, slightly above average, which feels right.
Right. Now I have more confidence in that defensive number coming in more in line than I do the offensive number there.
Sure. You can get healthier and get TJ Watt back after the bye. Hopefully schedule's a little bit easier, quote unquote. You're facing Carolina, for example. So in theory, it should help.
And look, I think it's kind of damning what Mike Tomlin told Bob Labriola the other day about, or not Bob, Bob Pompiani there about we're not an offense that's going to be able to. I mean, he told no lies. It's probably not the kind of thing that you want to hear out of his mouth, in so many words. He said, we're not an offense that's going to be able to drive the field,
Right. Well, they aren't. I mean, that's just a fact.
Right.
I mean, you can't ignore that.
Then how do you counteract that?
Chunk plays. And they're not getting
and a running game.
Right. I mean, you can't have the defense have 13 guys in the field and their linebacker calling timeout every single week. I mean, it was a good play. You're going tempo, taking advantage of their mistake, but again, sustainable, not having that. But just happy that it was enough to get the win at least on Sunday.
Absolutely. What about anything else on offense there? Individual play or anything?
Yeah, I think that was
not the best game for Kevin Dotson for sure.
No, just pretty sloppy with his technique. I think just a lot of stuff above the neck for him just has not settled in quite well. I think Dan Moore continues to do well in pass pro, independent hands, good punch overall. James Daniels doing a good job. But yeah, the run blocking, just a lot of little things that have to get cleaned up.
Right.
That was kind of my review overall. Any other thoughts on the All-22, Dave?
No, what did you see anything? I never pulled the special teams tape.
Yeah, I have the clip. I need to edit it a little bit, but yeah, I'm watching. Jamal Dean was about 5 yards back. He gets pushed by Connor Hayward and then chases him down. Dean ran, and I'm not surprised by this, he ran a 4.30 coming out of college. And so he showed that 4.30 speed to chase down Steven Sims, although Sims apparently was one of the 6 fastest player of the week on that return, 20.84 miles per hour. So he was running, but Dean was running faster.
Yeah, and he got hawked down. I mean, when it's noticeable on TV tape, it's going to show up on the All 22 big time.
Right.
Send me that clip when you get a chance.
I will. Did they have Dean as the fastest player? Because he should have been the fastest player if he caught the fourth fastest player. I think they limit that as ball carriers, though. What?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. It says the fourth fastest top speed. If you're running, you got speed.
Okay.
I mean, is Tariq Woolen not going to get credit for chasing down Taysom Hill a couple weeks ago? I mean, that dude was, I think they had a speed on that guy at 22.8 or something.
All right. I'll have to, I didn't see it, but I mean, yeah, you would think he would.
I mean, he was obviously faster than Sims on that play.
Right.
Very much obvious there. Anyway, all right, that's all I really have, Dave, in terms of things to talk about. Actually, real quick, and we're playing cryptic social media here. DeMarvin Leal on Instagram last night saying he's not finished on his Twitter account. Any idea what that means?
Yeah, that's dangerous, and I debated writing this up anyway, but it just, in light of what he had happened to him, and in light of him being at the at that Rock Steelers style event and not being on crutches, and I speculate that what does it mean? What does it mean? I take it as, and I interpret it as, he means he will not miss the rest of the season.
Okay, we hope so. I still don't know the status of the injury, and I would love Tomlin to be asked about that. Not that I would expect maybe too much of an answer, but would have been nice to know. Don't know the extent of that injury, but at least out the next. Does the bye week count as a time served on IR, or does it have to be games?
Think it's games.
Okay, so he won't be back for at least 3 more games, and probably longer than that, being a rookie that's going to miss time with a knee injury, a conditioning aspect, and all those things. Last thing, Dave. From the Brian Windhorst, as you mentioned, why would they do this? Jeremy Fowler reporting Packers have some interest in receivers at the deadline, floating out Chase Claypool's name as somebody who, in Fowler's words, according to NFL executives, was believed to be available in the preseason. There's a lot of qualifiers in that sentence, but basically saying that Claypool maybe could be a receiver the teams will target.
And if you go back to earlier in the offseason, even way back, I think, I don't know, what was it, May, June or something like that. Fowler was the one that says that had linked Chase Claypool as a potential, tradable player for the Steelers there. And here's the thing. You still got a few weeks to go until the November 1 trade deadline. The Steelers are still, like it or not, very much in the thick of things when it comes to their own division. I mean, they're 1 game out. You look at the overall makeup of the AFC North in general, it doesn't seem like one team's going to go run away and hide here. So technically the Steelers are probably going to be in this thing for a little while. Why would you trade away? And look, I get it. You got Austin coming in and all like that, but he's, even though the train's moving 1 mile an hour, he's still behind it, I guess. To me, it would take you'd have to get your doors blown off and really throw your hands up and be done with Chase Claypool, because he's got 1 more year on his contract here. It's cheap at that. Why do you go trading away players with still some value to you unless you get something good in return?
I know we just talked last week about would you trade Claypool, and I think I was open to it for a 5th round pick, but that was, of course, before beating Tampa Bay. I mean, no decisions get made until right at the deadline. Deadline spur action, as I think Andrew Brandt likes to say. So you kind of see where this team is at. If you feel like you're in it, you're going to hold on to him. If you lose these next 2 games, the good feeling we have right now is going to dissipate. You're 2-6. Your season is really over at that point. So I think you just see where these next 2 weeks take you and go from there. But certainly Claypool name to consider, and one, as you mentioned, Fowler's been referencing for several months.
Yeah, look, he's been hammering this for a while. So either there's smoke there, or he's just, he just views him as the most likely, and because of, kind of this team spent 2 draft picks on wide receivers, and he probably views him more as a more expendable choice here. But at this point, I would be kind of shocked if they dealt him. Once again, you'd have to, what can you get in return, and how far out are you out of it at the time that you deal him, and what do you think about Austin behind him and that kind of thing there.
Right.
Look, it's gonna be, in these next couple of weeks, assuming that Austin gets on to 53 here, which is surely bound to happen by a week from, I guess, today. Somebody's not only got to come off the roster, but somebody's going to lose playing time.
And probably lose their spot, because you're not going to carry all 7 receivers on there, I don't think. So somebody's going to go. You would think. Right.
Not only does the roster spot have to be lost, but somebody's snaps are going to get ate into to get Austin onto the field. Some.
Sure. Absolutely. So, but again, I think it goes back to, that's why you take until the clock strikes 12, because you got to wait these 2 weeks to see where your team is at, see how Austin, a little bit on how he looks and how he progresses and things like that. And it will be a small sample size of information, but it'll be more than what you have now. So bottom line is, Pittsburgh's not going to make any of those decisions until the day of the deadline, I would imagine.
I would think, right.
Fowler also mentioned, he says, quote, referring to Pittsburgh, they will field calls on third stringer Mason Rudolph if teams show interest around the deadline. So same story as the summer. Again, will they field calls? Sure.
He also linked up. He reads Depot, doesn't he?
I mean, and I like Jeremy. He follows me on Twitter for a long time, so he probably actually did get that from our conversation back in the summer about linking them to the Rams. You need a backup quarterback, and there's a connection between Zach Robinson on the coaching staff and Rudolph. Both went to Oklahoma State. Robinson training Rudolph during pre-draft, and so mentioned Rudolph being a name to watch. But again, my sense is Pittsburgh's still going to hold on to him.
Yeah, if they, especially with just what happened with Pickett, and it would have to. My only contention is, man, if you're out of it here in a couple more weeks, the only kind of, if you let Rudolph stay and then he leaves during free agency, that compensatory, whatever the value is, isn't calculated until 2024. So if you could get the cheeseburger today, why wouldn't you?
Right. But I think, again, Pittsburgh has that ultra conservative mindset. Now,
I should say that I think it's more likely that Rudolph gets traded than anybody on the roster right now.
I think it's Claypool. I think Claypool is more likely to get dealt, because let's say that Kenny Pickett or somebody gets hurt again. You just saw Pickett, leave that game. Let's say Pickett didn't get cleared for Sunday. Trubisky starts. Who's your backup quarterback if Rudolph is dealt?
Okay. Fair enough.
And I don't think Pittsburgh wants to be anywhere close to those shoes and being, because if you trade Rudolph and somebody gets hurt and you're down to just one guy, then your play calling gets different. You get more conservative. Can't get your quarterback hurt. You can't call more read option type plays, and you worry about play action and stuff like that. So I think they stand pat.
All you have to do is just go snatch Chris Oladokun back off of the Chiefs practice squad.
Yeah, let's get the 7th round rookie to be one snap away from playing. I mean, I think they stand pat. I don't think anyone gets traded, but I think if anybody does get traded, it's Chase Claypool.
It sure gets people. Those kind of things sure get people talking, don't they?
Oh, yeah. People love this kind of stuff. But the NFL trade deadline, I think Carolina will sell some pieces. Other than that, the deadline is a lot more bark than bite. It's not like hockey and baseball and basketball.
Right.
All right, Dave, I think we are good to get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
Okay. Let me sort this real quick here. What do we got coming up on the site today? Let's see.
I got some play. I don't believe Kenny Pickett's talking today because he's in protocol. So don't think we'll hear from Kenny Pickett, but we'll see if other players talk. And I know we'll try to effort a beat writer for Friday. We'll see if that can happen. So obviously no beat writer today.
Chris Cordova writes in, Uncle Dave and Cousin Alex. Hey guys, I haven't cheered that much in a game for offense and defense in a long time. Anyways, I'm interested to see how Mitch plays if he gets the start this week. I feel that him coming in the game with the overall situation already being benched, defense decimated by injuries, 8-point dogs, etc., helped him. No pressure and no fans booing or chanting Kenny, because I doubt anyone will start chanting Rudolph. I would like to see an organic Mitch make plays and not overthinking the game. Hope Kenny gets better soon. Keep up the good work, gentlemen. Chris Cordova from Cali. Well, Chris, at this point, it barring Kenny backsliding in the concussion protocol, I don't think you're going to see Mitch in this next game.
Right. And I understand he played well off the bench, but that doesn't take away from every person in Pittsburgh who wanted to see Kenny Pickett just literally 2 weeks ago. And as Tomlin said, and I think he's right to say it, not going to flip-flop, blow in the wind is his favorite phrase. And I think sticking with Pickett is the right decision.
Ryan Russell, hey, Dave and Alex, very happy the win, but work still needs to be done in terms of the running game. He asked, could Jaylen Warren outperform Najee and be the running back one by the end of the season or in the near future? He did it in the Bills. He did in the Bills game. However, he didn't on Sunday, but only had 2 carries compared to Najee's 14. Ryan, I get the sentiment. I get the reason for the question and all, but this team's got, Najee's the pedigree. They got the draft pick in there. Jaylen could come out in the game against the Dolphins, have 3 carries for 150 yards, and he's still going to be Najee's backup. That's just the reality of this thing in there. And, people try to as a counteraction to the old fungible argument and all like that. They say, well, look at how many of these top drafted running backs are in the league lead and all like that. Well, because you're going to play that guy, you're going to give that guy, if you got the draft pedigree in these running backs, you're going to try to get every ounce of it out of them there. So, I mean, it's very unlikely to see a situation where a team has a top drafted back and says, you know what, this undrafted guy is just better, where you usually see these undrafted kids surface at is in the second organization that they're with, right?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Obviously, teams want to play their draft picks, but Jonathan Taylor's a high pick that's playing a lot because he deserves to play a lot.
Look, I'm not saying that those guys don't deserve it on top of it, but
what's a situation where a back is a high draft pick that's playing that probably shouldn't be playing, where some guys behind him is clearly the better option?
Oh, I'd have to go through the list.
Right. I don't know. Maybe I'm sure there's something like that, but probably not many teams.
But generally, those guys are going to stay on the field.
Yeah, but I think to the names that I talk about, the Taylors, the Dalvin Cooks, the Nick Chubb, so it's warranted for them to stay on the field. Their play certainly deserves to stay on the field. But
how many of those guys, though, within that, though, are 100% bell cows? I mean, even you have Cook getting with the Madison kid, I think.
Well, at this point, Najee's not a bell cow anymore. He's a first and second down guy. I mean, the last 2 weeks, he's played 8 third down snaps. I mean, Warren only had 2 carries, but he played about a third of those snaps. Harris played a few snaps he's played in a game all year against Tampa Bay, excluding games he got hurt in or excluding the Buffalo Bills blowout. So I wouldn't even consider Harris to be an every down back anymore.
Long story short, Jalen's not going to supplant Najee as the number 1 running back.
Right, but he has carved out a role and certainly has increased his playing time more than what I thought it would be.
Christopher, salary cap question. When someone from the practice squad gets elevated for a game, how does that hit the salary cap? Do they essentially get the league minimum game check, or do they have a set practice squad cap amount if elevated? They get a game check for that week, whatever, divided by 18 or whatnot, and they get that salary for the week.
But it's the minimum, whatever the minimum would be.
Yeah, whatever the minimum is.
Okay. Good deal.
In that. And let's see, what else do we have? Nick Shuley writes in, Alex and Dave, with Javon Hargrave set to hit free agency this coming off season, do you think there's any possibility the Steelers try and bring him back? Much love for the work and great con. Look, I jokingly put out several months ago that I can't wait for 2023 to welcome back Javon Hargrave to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Will it happen? I don't know, but it wouldn't hurt my feelings if that did happen.
Yeah, I forget he's older now, isn't he? Though is he 30? No, how old is Javon Hargrave? Is he 30?
Isn't he like 28? Hold on,
he's gonna be 30 next February.
Is that it?
Dang. God, we're all getting old, Dave. But I mean, he's still playing really well, so. I mean, I wouldn't be mad about it. I think it would make a lot of sense. Oluwalu's going to retire. Looking for that guy in the middle. I mean, Hargrave was a great player. Didn't want to lose him. Just paying tagging Dupree and just couldn't pay Hargrave that kind of money. I mean, it would make a lot of sense.
Let's see. When is his? He's 29 right now, so he would be 30 next off season.
Right, he turns 30 in February.
February there. So, and he's making. Just in this season alone, his salary is workout bonus and everything, $13 million, I think. Now, obviously, he's got prorated bonus from where his deal and all like that. That's figured in there, and his average his APY is $13 million. Is he worth at least that? Next season, probably.
Yeah, I would say so.
I don't know. I mean, it could. I'm not going to say it won't happen. And if there's anybody to go after, it would be a guy that you know. And obviously the Steelers have the connections with Weidel and all like that from the Eagles organization. So
Good point.
He knows them from over there as well too. I don't know if it will happen, but it wouldn't hurt my feelings if it did. I'll say that, especially if it was around what he's making now or less.
We'll be talking about him, I'm assuming, by free agency.
Sure.
He does not get an extension. We'll be talking about Hargrave coming back.
And look, the Eagles might be saying, look, we can't let him go,
Right. Sure. We'll see.
Taylor Carpenter, bad drafts and dud arms. First, a few podcasts back, Dave asked Alex if he believed the Steelers have drafted well recently. Alex thought yes, and Dave thought no. Can you take a minute and roll quickly through the 2 to 3 drafts preceding the most recent and discuss? I look back recently, and I believe Alex may dramatically change his view of how the Steelers have drafted as of late. Might give the listeners a better understanding of why we are where we are currently. Second, is there another starting quarterback right now with a weaker arm than Kenny Pickett? The Hail Mary long toss was nice to see, but in general, watching him, there just isn't that NFL zip on the ball. Having trouble coming up with the names of many quarterbacks with dud arms not named Brady that panned out. Even Brady in his heyday, I think, had better zip on it than Kenny. What are your thoughts on his long-term future? Do you see this as a large issue? I'm not going to weigh in on Kenny yet as a long-term future. I will go back to saying the things that I said about Kenny. Right, my thoughts on Kenny coming out was I was concerned about his overall arm talent, strength, being able to push the football down the field. And I was worried about some of his processing. Those were the two things that were my concerns on Kenny coming out. Now, he's made some very nice far hash throws so far, in my opinion. And and as I said, I made sure to give him credit for him throwing that football over them there mountains on that Hail Mary. That's the furthest I think that I've seen him throw a football there. But you can win in this league and not throw the football 68 yards down the field as long as you understand what you're seeing on the other side of the on the defense there, and you're making good decisions and you have accuracy.
Yeah, again, you said it's pretty early in this process. I haven't seen I mean, Pickett doesn't have a huge arm, but I haven't seen a lack of arm strength be a massive issue so far. So
I haven't either yet. No, but I haven't seen these 28
right.
40-yard throws regularly yet either, you know?
Right. And the first throw he ever had, the interception, I think it kind of hung a little bit and kind of shows some of the limitations there. But I'm just going to keep watching, keep learning. It's hard to, again, I'm here to analyze, to critique, to praise, but not to conclude.
And you know, that I'm in the same boat. There's several things that we need to be looking forward, still moving forward with him, I think. What about the draft question?
Yeah, I mean, you want to take a minute or two and try to run through some of these things?
All right, sure. I'll play.
What year do you want to start with? 2019?
Well, he said, what did he say? 2 years prior to this year? So the last,
is that what he said?
I guess.
So that'd be 2020. Is that if he wants to start there?
Let's even start at 2000. Let's start at 2019 and give an extra buffer there.
Okay. So, I'll read them off.
All right.
Devin Bush, Diontae Johnson, Justin Lane, Benny Snell, Zach Gentry, Sutton Smith, Isaiah Buggs, UG3, and Derwin Gray was the 19 draft class, of course, trading up from 20 to 10 to get Devin Bush.
All right. Look, Benny Snell is a special teams player.
Yes.
Not a bad one. Not a all pro one. Zach Gentry, overall for where he was drafted, I don't think he's met his, I mean, it's a 5th round pick here, but
I think he's met the expectation. Number 2 blocking tight end.
I was hoping he'd be better as a blocker this year.
I think he struggled a bit, but just overall his whole career, he was a good blocker last year. He's become a number 2 tight end.
I can give him a pass on Gentry.
5th round pick. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Where are you on Snell?
I mean, a 4th round pick, you like to probably get a little bit more than just special teams type dude, but he's been a quality contributor on special teams. You can do worse in terms of the 4th round pick there.
All right, the rest of the draft class after that, I mean, not good.
I mean, UG3 gave a little bit, but yeah, top 3. I mean, Bush still a bad pick overall in hindsight. Better play this year, injuries, all that still didn't work out. Diontae saves that because he's turned into I know he's had the frustration and all that kind of stuff, but still a good pick. That's undeniable to me. And then Justin Lane, that one was a miss.
Right. So overall, what do you think of that draft class? Not good, right?
I would say a bit below average. I would say that obviously Bush is a miss at the top, but you get Johnson, you get some role players in Snell and Gentry. I would say a below average draft class. But again, I think Johnson hitting that pick at 66 is pretty big.
All right, 2020. Now, this depends on how you want to qualify the whole Minkah Fitzpatrick thing.
Yeah, well, I think you shouldn't include him in the draft because he was not drafted by Pittsburgh, so I won't include him here. So Chase Claypool, Alex Highsmith, Anthony McFarland Jr., Kevin Dotson, Antoine Brooks Jr., and Carlos Davis. That is a draft class.
All right, let me throw this out there. How would this draft look had you drafted Alex Highsmith in the 2nd and Chase Claypool in the 3rd?
Good point. I mean, perspective matters a lot. Expectations matter a lot in evaluating these players. It would have looked better. We're still writing some of the stories of, Claypool certainly got a lot of crap, and rightfully so, but coming off a great week, people feel better about his situation right now. Highsmith, great pick. McFarland, miss. Dotson, always leaving a bit more, but 4th round pick starting left guard, we'll see how the rest of the year plays out. I think you could be a lot of the 4th round picks that don't play, let alone guys that start for you, and then Brooks and Davis did little or nothing for you. So I would call that above average.
I would say at least your top 2 picks. I mean, and obviously being a 2nd and 3rd. If you were to interchange those on paper, I think it's tolerable. I mean, because we just talked about Alex is still progressing as a player. Chase Claypool, but the rest of it and all kind of, I would call it an average.
Okay, that's fair. 2021, Najee Harris, Pat Frymouth, Kendrick Green, Dan Moore, Buddy Johnson, Isaiah Lattimore, Quincy Roche, Trey Norwood, and Presley Harvin III. Again, some stories still being written. I think this is a pretty good draft class. I understand there are misses there, and Kendrick Green is a definite miss and one of the worst process picks this team has had under the Tomlin era, but I still have confidence in Harris. Frymouth, a stud tight end. Dan Moore's progressed at left tackle. Buddy Johnson, that was a miss. Loudermilk's gotten you rotational snaps. Roche got claimed, but we'll call that a miss. Norwood, a great find, 7th round. Harvin's been as a punter, but I think I would call that a good class.
You know how I feel about Najee in the first round pick. I don't hate Najee the player. I just hate the draft capital in there. I think Freiermuth's been fine. I had Freiermuth as a 3rd round grade on him. Kendrick Green, not great, obviously. Dan Moore, the story's still being written. He's made some progress this year, I think, though. The rest of it, though,
I think Loudermilk exceeded my
again,
expectations.
I'd call this kind of an average.
You would call that average? I mean, you're getting
Average
starters
right
at
now.
Harris, Freiermuth.
I mean,
Moore,
but what has Harris done for you, really, overall, technically?
He was good last year. I mean, I don't want to forget about his whole rookie season where he was a good running back. He, in a bad situation, but a good running back.
I mean, had they nailed the 3rd round pick better here, I would call it an average class, just top to bottom. I mean, we're looking at this top to bottom. We just can't take the top 3 picks. I mean,
I'm Norwood, Loudermilk. Those are good players that you've gotten. I mean, in terms of guys that are playing for you, Dan Moore in the 4th round, left tackle that's progressing. I'm not looking at just the top here.
Okay, I would call it an average class right at this moment, and okay. I consider it obviously headlined by it be Freiermuth 1A and then Najee 1B.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then this past class, obviously you're still working through it, but having a bit of a feel. Kenny Pickett, George Pickens, DeMarvin Leal, Calvin Austin, Connor Hayward, Mark Robinson, and Chris Oladokun. Promising is the word I would use for this class, but obviously we're still pretty early into this thing.
Right. I mean, so far so good would be my thoughts on it, and it's sad that Leal went down. It's unfortunate that Austin has had the injury. I mean, Connor Hayward's done everything you'd probably ask out of the 6th round. We don't know what's going to happen with Mark Robinson yet. So but I mean, yeah, it's promising right now at this moment.
Right. But that could change, and where it ends by season's end, who knows? Obviously Pickett will really define this class overall.
I think when people look at these draft class and once again, I think you have to get at least 3 years removed from a draft class before really getting a good handle on what it was and wasn't. I think people, when they want to look at this, is they want to look at, well, what has the back half of the class done?
Yeah, you want to see where the value's at. And Pittsburgh generally probably hasn't been as good on day 3 as they had been at other certain points under Colbert. I mean, I think that's fair. And I think you could certainly argue, are they valuing the right positions? Running back, off-ball linebacker, in terms of some top picks, and that's probably a good conversation to have.
All right, going back to 2019, who would be your top 3, and throw out the 1st round picks, okay? Who would be the top 3 drafted players of the last 3 draft classes, or going back to 2019?
The best picks overall, or just from a value perspective, that whole aspect?
I guess just all of it, all the way back to 2019.
As of right now, Diontae, Highsmith, Freiermuth, and Pickens could soon join that conversation.
All right, where would Najee be on that list?
Well, you said to throw out 1st round picks.
Oh, okay. All right. But if you were to throw Najee in, if you were to throw 1st round picks in now, how much would change here?
That's a good question. I don't know for sure where I would put him. I mean, he's above Bush in terms of 1st round picks. Where does he slot in with Pickett? Who knows?
Would you rank Freiermuth ahead of Najee?
In terms of who's the better player, or what was the better pick, or because I'm trying to think about the value of it too. But I think you could do that.
Okay.
I think there's no debate about Freiermuth's talent and production and all that kind of stuff.
I think that it lacks that little extra burst. If we're going back to 2019 as a whole with all these classes here, I think it has lacked. And I think that's where this team might be suffering right now, is some of these other guys not not being able to get in the more fuller time contributing roles.
I think to me, the biggest complaint that would be valid is not necessarily the players they took. Obviously, some of these guys didn't work out. Again, you have to think about the rest of the league. They're having these same conversations too. Nobody's batting 1,000 here. I think we tend to overanalyze things because we're looking at the picks ourselves. If we were Seattle fans, we're talking about the Seattle's highs and lows. Every team has this kind of stuff. I think it's less about the players. It's more about the positional value. Have they done enough to address the trenches? O-line, obviously, not drafting high in a long time. D-line, not a lot of reinforcements as that group got older and to a situation and all that kind of stuff. So I think the biggest complaint could potentially be about where they're picking, less about who they're picking.
All right, and not looking at and that's probably the better way that I should frame my argument here is top to bottom, their classes, whether you be positions, players, or whatever. The reason they are in the position they are right now is because not having better drafts, maybe from a positional standpoint.
Right. Essentially saying that Pittsburgh is not valuing the right things when it comes to the early portion of the draft, and they're not making up for that with any sort of late round gems like a Kelvin Beachum.
Okay. But I do feel like they're in the position they are in as a result of drafts, period.
All right, fair enough. Good question.
Let's see here. Mobile quarterbacks from Matt Johnson. Where's Shoemakersville? I've never heard
that
of
sounds like middle of Pennsylvania, middle of nowhere, but I do not know.
Dear Dave and Alex, how much do you feel the success against Tampa Bay has contributed to Tom Brady not being a mobile quarterback? It felt like the Steelers would get close to Josh Allen and he would just run away. Also, do you think Steelers defense has a problem with getting too cute? It seems like since they were playing with practice squad defense, were less exotic, and maybe that should be the plan moving forward. Well, they definitely were, and Mike Tomlin said as much. It was limited cards they were dealing with there because of the personnel and all like that. But I think they mixed, and I think against Buffalo too, as Alex has said a couple times, I think they've done a good job of trying to be as multiple as they can based on what they were going up against at the quarterback position. Josh Allen just out threw the defense and for starters. And then obviously he had the injuries and whatnot. Did Tom Brady not being mobile quarterback hurt the Buccaneers? Oh yeah. I mean, and that wasn't a secret going in. It's not like you had to watch out for Tom Brady escaping up the middle, or taking off with the football there. And Tom Brady did look like he's showing his age in that game to some degree.
He did. And I don't know if that's O-line issues or, there were some receivers that could have made plays that didn't. I don't know if it was maybe as bad of a game as the box score would indicate. I mean, there's pros and cons, mobile quarterbacks versus non-mobile quarterbacks, but they were blitzing Josh Allen for partly trying to contain the guy and rushing 5 to do so. And that's less of an issue against much less of an issue against Tom Brady. And so you can rush 4, drop 7 and play coverage, which is ideally what you want to be. So, especially with a secondary that was as beat up as it was. So, yeah, I think certainly you'd rather face the statue quarterback than the mobile quarterback.
Okay, I think we've got through them all, Alex. I think we're coming up on the 2-hour mark as well, too. So probably a great time to end this. Anything to add?
No, we'll be back on Friday, like I said, hopefully with a beat writer. We'll see about that. And hear from Canada and Austin. We'll see if they get asked about stem in the front. I have a good feeling they will not be asked about, or Austin will not be asked about stemming the front, because I don't think most people know what that is or even observed it.
I hear you. I'm with you on that. In the meantime, I'm going to try to stay out of people's way on Twitter here, I think. If you'd like to follow me and watch me try to stay out of harm's way on Twitter, at Steelers Depot, Alex on Twitter. What's your new Twitter handle?
at going around Twitter. No. It's cool to see someone say that and at least ask the question to Hayward. So I don't know. I'm not mad about that.
At Alex_Kozora, follow the show at Terrible Podcast, email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also have an ad-free version of the site at SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button, upper right navigational bar. So until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.